And now we present an adaptation of Maggie the Magnificent by C.K. Thompson. Yes, girls and boys, that was the song of a magpie. And many people say that the magpie has the most beautiful voice of all our Australian birds. This magpie was called Maggie the Magnificent, and he and his mate had their nest in a tall gum tree standing in a paddock on the edge of a country town. One day, Maggie was sitting on a branch high up in his gum tree, looking out over the paddock, when he saw a boy come out from behind some bushes. The boy was carrying something large and shiny in one hand and a big stick in the other. And he stopped underneath the tree some distance away and put the big shiny thing on the ground. Then he started to hit the shiny thing with the stick, making an awful clattering noise. And just as Maggie was wondering what it could all mean, he saw two more boys come out of the bushes.
I say, Nibbler, look at Jackie Peters. What do you think he's doing with that kerosene tin? Hello there, Jackie.
G'day, you two.
I say, Nibbler, doesn't he sound pleased to see us?
Oh, well, look here, Harry. I'm trying to catch a swarm of bees in this tree, and I don't want you and Nibbler mucking things up, see?
Well, why are you making all that row with a kerosene tin?
Because I want to be a drummer in the school band, and I'm just having a bit of practice.
Ha, ha, ha. You know what, Nibbler? I reckon he thinks the bees will like his music so much they'll follow him home. And then he can put them in a hive.
Very funny. Well, listen, Harry, if you want to know, the bees follow the queen by the noise she makes. And when I bang the tin, they can't hear her, you see? And then they all settle in a swarm.
Yeah, and I've heard that one before. Don't you believe him, Nibbler? It doesn't make them swarm at all.
It does, so I tell you.
I can say what you like, it's all rot.
Look, Harry, do you want a punch in the eye? Because you'll get one in a minute.
All right, I didn't mean anything. But suppose they do settle in a swarm. How are you going to get them anyway?
Oh, I say, they have settled. Look, up there on that branch. There, Harry. What did I tell you?
Oh, yeah. They've settled, but... Well, you've still got to get them down, and they're pretty high up.
Oh, yeah. It's a bit awkward, isn't it? Oh, I wish they'd settled closer to the ground.
Well, suppose I climb the tree and knock them off with a stick, Jackie. Will you catch them?
All right, you can try it. But don't go hurting the queen.
Well, how'll I know the queen anyway? Will she have a crown on her head?
Oh, get up the tree if you're going to, Harry, and don't try to be funny.
Go on. Hey, cut it out, Jackie. Who do you think you're kicking? Take that.
Oh! All right, Harry. You take this and this.
Come on. All right, come on. Take that.
Look out, Nibbler. You keep out of this or I'll hit you after.
Take
that. Oh.
Come on, Jackie. Get up and have some more. I say, Nibbler, I think I've knocked him right out.
And Harry had knocked him out. For Jackie had turned away for a moment to swing a punch at the interfering Nibbler. And just then, Harry had got in with a beauty right on his chin. Jackie was lying so still that Nibbler thought he might even be dead. He took to his heels at once. Harry waited for a while, then he decided that Jackie was beginning to come round and thought it would be a good moment to slip away home. Up in his gum tree, Maggie saw them go. And being inquisitive, he glided down for a closer look at the boy lying so still and quiet on the ground. Maggie landed just a few feet from Jackie's head, then hopped a little nearer, with his head on one side, peered closely at Jackie. It was just at this moment that Jackie's father, Mr. Peters, came along on his way home from work and found his son lying on the ground with a magpie standing by his head.
Shoot! Get away, you brute! Go on, shoot! Jackie, what's happened? Can you hear me, son? What's the matter?
Oh, hello, Dad.
What happened, Jackie? Have you had an accident or a fight?
I don't know, Dad.
Or was it that magpie?
What magpie?
There's a cut on the back of your head. It must have been the magpie.
Now, Jackie didn't know it. But when Harry knocked him down, he had cut the back of his head on a sharp stone. He didn't know anything about a magpie either. And he would hate anyone to know that Harry Butt had beaten him in a fight, even with some help from Nibbler. So, why not blame it all onto this magpie his father was talking about?
Did you say a magpie, Dad?
Yes, I found you lying here with a magpie standing near your head. They're very savage just now because it's their nesting season. Looks to me as though he's pecked a hole in the back of your head.
I don't know what happened, Dad. I was looking for a swarm of bees and something hit me all of a sudden on the back of the head. I don't remember anymore. But it could have been a magpie.
Yes, that's what it was, all right. Of course, you might have bumped your head on the ground, too. But it was certainly the magpie that knocked you down.
Yes, Dad, it must have been.
My word, I'll see the police about this. I'll have that bird shot. Never did like magpies. And now there's going to be one less round here.
Yes, Dad, righto.
When Mr. Peters made his complaint to the police sergeant, the sergeant just smiled and shook his head. He said that magpies were protected by the law, and that anybody who killed one without special permission could be heavily fined. And anyway, he didn't believe that Jackie had been attacked by a magpie at all. This made Mr. Peters so angry that he said he would bring the matter up at the next meeting of the Parents and Citizens Association.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, before we close the meeting, is there any other matter we have to discuss?
Yes, Mr. President.
Oh, and what is that, Mr. Peters?
Mr. President, I want something to be done about the savage magpies that are attacking people in our parks. My boy Jackie was attacked by one of these pests a few days ago. Pecked him so severely on the head he was knocked over and stunned.
Most unfortunate, Mr. Peters.
Yes, Mr. President. And yet, when I reported the matter to the Sergeant of Police and asked him to have the bird destroyed, you know what he did? He laughed at me. Just laughed and said my boy Jackie was telling lies.
Did he really, Mr. Peters?
He did, sir. And yet Jackie had a cut on the back of his head where the wretched bird pecked him.
And what do you wish the meeting to do about the matter, Mr. Peters?
Well, Mr. President, I say that all these birds should be destroyed. It isn't safe to go for a quiet walk in any of our parks. And if the police won't protect us, well, I say the members of this association ought to start a war against magpies and kill every single one of them in the district.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Perkins, you wish to speak?
Yes, sir. I want to say that I'll have nothing to do with any war against magpies. This idea of Mr. Peters is just foolish.
What do you know about it anyway, Perkins?
Well, Mr. Peters, for one thing I can tell you, it's against the law to kill magpies. And you're asking us to break the law. No doubt the sergeant told you that, too. But anyway, Mr. Peters, I'm a farmer, as you know. And I've always said the magpie is the farmer's best friend.
And our enemy.
Oh, I know he has his bad points, Mr. Peters. I admit he gets a bit savage at nesting time. But for the rest of the year, he does a wonderful job for the farmer, keeping down the caterpillars and cutworms and insect pests of every kind. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if we had more magpies, we wouldn't have nearly as many grasshoppers.
More magpies to peck our children's eyes out, eh?
Mr. Peters, we haven't heard of any other children being attacked by magpies. In any case, this bird didn't peck your boy's eyes out.
It could have, anyway.
And after all,
We don't know for certain that the boy was attacked by the Magpie at all.
Are you saying that my boy Jackie's a liar?
Not at all, Mr. Peters. There'll be a little more reason.
Now, come, gentlemen. I think it's time we ended this discussion and took a vote on the question. Now, would all those in favour of Mr. Peters' motion
Very well.
please
We'll come over to this side and vote here.
And so there are 3 votes in favour of Mr. Peters' motion and 25 against it. The motion is therefore lost.
Oh, very good.
All right. I'll fight these magpies by myself. And I'll start with the one that nearly killed my boy Jackie.
But Maggie and his mate had already left their gum tree and gone to look for a new nesting place. They decided to make their home in a Moreton Bay fig tree on a farm further away from the town. The tree stood quite close to the farmer's house, and although the farmer's name didn't matter a bit to Maggie, it was, well, Mr. Perkins. Yes, the man who had called magpies the farmer's best friend. So Maggie had found a safe and friendly home. He and his mate spent their days hunting busily and happily for grubs and caterpillars and grasshoppers on Mr. Perkins' farm.
Maggie the Magnificent by C.K. Thompson is published by Dimmock's Book Arcade Limited. It was adapted for radio by Ian Green.